Thank you very much once again for inviting. I'm not sure how inspirational this will be, but this will be definitely from my heart and from my experience. And preparing to meet you, I was kind of zooming out and thinking, okay, so you are uh, current heroes and future heroes, no doubt about that. And I try to sort of define what does word hero mean to me. And the formula, I'm a mathematician by training, the formula is following. I think hero equals being a leader of your own life. So firstly, being in charge of your own head, being in charge of your own life, and then trying to be, frankly speaking, the best version of yourself. And then you sort of, try to reach whatever is out there for you. So hero is not necessarily, again, prime minister or this and that. Hero is just leading your own life and being the best version of yourself. And in the rest of the day, you will have build and bond session. I was also sort of thinking and reflecting on that one. Firstly, you definitely need to bond with yourself. You need to sort of be, again, leader of yourself. Then that means you're bonding with yourself. And afterwards, of course, you need to build yourself. So that is sort of true. Firstly, in your own life, in your own head, and then afterwards, of course, when it comes to interacting with others, building teams, etc., etc. So that will be the thread of my today's speech. Very shortly about myself, two pictures. I will shortly tell you why I have selected those. But as mentioned, I'm a management board member of SEB for more than 10 years now. Currently chief risk officer, have been chief financial officer, have been responsible for anti-money laundering in Baltics, etc., etc. Actually, I started out as the youngest management board quite by far at that time. So yeah, plenty of experience, but still feel semi-young myself, to be frank. But things I'm even more proud of is being chairman of the board for multiple years now for SOS Children's Villages Latvia. I'm also lately international Senate member for SOS Children's Villages International organization that operates in more than 130 countries, is a multi-billion euro annual budget charity organization. Well, I'm glad to say I have friends almost in every country in the world currently. And Senate member, that means like sort of, non-executive board member or supervisory council member. Currently on that level, actually responsible for financial flows, etc., etc. And of course, the biggest motivation there for me is to see that we do support Ukraine and children in Ukraine currently. I know that some of you are with Ukrainian backgrounds, so definitely that's my mission internationally as well. And SOS Children's Villages international organization has tried to help Ukrainian kids to an extent possible, and well, we are cruising above 100 million euros, which is sort of a lot of money, but then again, it's still not enough given the level of difficulties we see in Ukraine. And last but not least, I'm also chairman of the board of Baltic Institute of Corporate Governance. That is, how do you build good teams on a board level? How do you govern companies? So again, a bit similar to the topic that we'll have later in the day. Sort of a bit from a personal angle, so that you understand that I'm no hero, or I wasn't born hero in any sense, and I still don't regard myself to be one. I actually used to be the worst in class when it comes to English language, and I used to be one of those really shy guys that thought I would rather jump out of the window of the class. I still remember that feeling, instead of going in front of class and presenting something. So up till seventh or eighth grade, I was quite clearly, among the weakest, not in maths, but definitely in English, definitely in sort of presenting something or approaching others, etc., etc. And it has been a slow and difficult sort of work with myself in order to try to improve myself, and that will be sort of again the thread of my today's presentation. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's not like one day you wake up and you are sort of good in English, or you are comfortable to come in front of the class. That is something where you really need to invest your time, and there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in order to accomplish something. And this sort of picture What you can see here, this is from last year. That is the biggest business conference, EBIT, where I'm on a stage, feeling not full comfortable, of course not, but still sort of having worked on myself and having promised to myself that I will never say no for whatever comes in my direction in English language, for whatever comes in my direction when it comes to sort of going in front of the class. So with small baby steps, I find myself presenting something in front of a huge business audience in the biggest business conference in Baltics. And that's a bit of a thread that you will see later on through the slides. And this smaller version of me, this is Baltic Way. Some of you might recognize those typical pictures. So this is also sort of very important for me, that since Latvia regained its independence, we try to do our utmost to make sure that we leave a better version of Latvia behind us, or after our life's end. So that has been a sort of very important motivation for me, and that means why I'm sort of never tired after doing charity work, be it in SOS locally, be it in SOS internationally, be it in Baltic Institute of Corporate Governance or elsewhere. So that's definitely a sort of a core motivational thing for me. When it comes to developing yourself, so the usual question is talent, or is it hard work? And I can definitely tell you that in my case, I think it's mostly hard work, and other smart people mostly tend to agree that there might be a bit of talent needed, but almost completely it is question of hard work. And therefore, for me, sort of this English language and presentation thing is a quite symbolic one, because sort of approximately 10 years ago, I remember myself being in an event in a bank, and we were sharing so what we think are the talents for others. And I was amazed when others looked at me and they said, well, Kārlis is fairly talented in languages, and he's talented in giving presentations. And I really sort of remember that meeting. I partly closed down and I thought, my God, how is that possible? Those are two things where I was the worst in class, and I thought, okay, I'm a least talented person in those two from all the ones that I know of. And again, it has been hard work. It has been sort of doing one thing after another, not saying no, not being comfortable, investing in yourself, reading everything in English language. I sort of got a bit sick and tired of myself being the worst. So again, I said I will do everything in English. Movies, only English. Books, only English. Now I have been reading, for example, a professional magazine, The Economist, from first page till the last page for more than 20 years. And when you finish the first one, and after 1 week comes the second issue, it's not like you have improved your English tremendously. But if you zoom out, and if I now look back at having done that for 20 years, I can say I don't know any other person that has been this committed to that particular professional education aspect in terms of not only English language, but also content. And it certainly has helped me tremendously when it comes to working for the bank, understanding economics, also in my international SOS work. Through this magazine, I have learned about every country out there in the world, their historical, economical, social background, etc., etc. So it piles up, but it's not something that you are born with. It's not something that you are sort of recognizing as your own talent. And this book that I'm here mentioning, this one Danish guy a couple of years ago, he was actually in Riga, had the pleasure to listen to him and briefly meet him. And he's one of those guys that was traveling the world, and he was scouting out potential talents in sports, in football, in soccer, in his case. And he was quite sort of amazed how difficult it is to see in youngsters who will be a future star. Because, for example, David Beckham sort of initially maybe struggled, and it wasn't obvious that he will be a star. Messi and others also. It's not necessarily it's obvious from the very beginning that they are born this way, that they are born with some sort of talent. And he soon got sort of a bit fed up that, well, you can't see early enough if there's a talent for this particular sports or not. So he actually made the point. He traveled to Jamaica. He trained together with Jamaican sprinters. The most famous among those are here in this picture, Mr. Bolt. And he tried to understand, okay, so how do you see talent emerging? Why do all the sprinters come from Jamaica? And then he did similar thing. He traveled and lived in Ethiopia, trained together with Ethiopians. And how is it that all the sort of marathon runners, first place, second place, and third place, quite often in the world, come from Ethiopia? How is that possible? And he was initially a bit disappointed, but afterwards made a nice book out of it, because he discovered that well, there's no magic in Jamaica. Mr. Bolt comes to a track to do his training 8 o'clock in the morning. He puts a lot of weight around his legs, and he trains and he trains and he trains like obsessed. So in a way, his talent is to train a lot. And then others around him, what do they conclude? They look at Mr. Bolt. They see, well, he's a regular dude. I know his mother. We eat the same thing. We live nearby. There's no magic. There's no kind. He's not born as a hero. He's just obsessed with training. Maybe there is a sort of a bit of physical predisposition. I come from doctor's family. I sort of partly maybe recognize that as well. But mostly guys around him look at Bolt and say he's a normal dude. We don't regard him as a hero. He's just kind of obsessed with training. So if I want to be like Mr. Bolt, what do I do? And then quite clearly you make a conclusion. Okay, I need to come to this track and field training ground half an hour earlier than Mr. Bolt. He puts around his legs 5 kilos of weight. I will put 5.5. So you quite soon recognize he's an ordinary hero or an ordinary guy. And if I want to sort of compete with himself, firstly I need to compete with myself, and then I just need to do it a bit more. So it's you get this inspiration that it is a lot of hard work that you need to invest in this particular thing. A similar thing about Ethiopians. Well, guess what? It's a fairly poor country. I actually plan to travel to Ethiopia later in the year myself. It's a pretty poor, war-torn country. And when you sort of go to school, quite often you wake up and you need to just run to the school. It's 20 kilometers run in order to get to your respective school. And guess what? In the evening, you need to work in a farm. It's really sort of difficult for your parents, so you need to help them. So you also run back from the school. So every kid or a lot of kids grow up by running 40 kilometers per day. So again, is it talent that they are born with? No, it's more the circumstances. It's more the hard work that builds them into runners. There might be something around Ethiopia being sort of a bit more in mountains, so their lungs perform better when they come to Europe, etc., etc. Again, I understand there is a bit of physical predisposition. There might be a bit of talent, but almost only it is about hard work that gets them to their gold medals or silver or bronze medals respectively. If you intend to be sort of leader of your own life, you need to be good in motivating yourself and in sort of scoping what is in your control. So if you start out as the worst person in English language or presentation skills in class, then whose problem is it? And the only honest answer is, well, it's your problem. It's not teacher's fault. It's not your parents' fault. It's not government's fault. It's not school's fault. So it's your own problem. And I always use this Adizes as an example. He's a Holocaust survivor, the only one from his family who built out a consultancy business from sort of trying to explain to others what is quite well recognized as a sort of Jewish business mentality and Jewish family mentality. And the more I read about how Jewish people were raising their kids during medieval times, the more impressed I am, because nobody loved those kids. If you have read Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice, then you can recognize this feeling that no one likes you. Everyone is a bit sort of ostracizing you. and you really need to survive on your own. And you really sort of develop either a mentality where you see yourself as a victim and you give up, or you develop this mentality what Jews I think on average in medieval Europe developed, what is a constructive reply to a fairly hostile world. And that constructive reply is correctly defining what is your problem. So if I now after this wonderful presentation, if I go outside and it's raining, um, whose problem is it if it's raining? Not my problem. It's raining. I cannot affect rain. I cannot stop rain. My problem is, do I have umbrella? Do I have a jacket? So my problem is always what I can do. If I don't like some aspects in Latvia, I think sort of there are a lot of things to improve concerning how kids are not damaged, etc., etc. I can see it as a government problem and then I do nothing about it, or I can see, okay, my problem is how do I use the dimensions that I have in order to try to work with that. So your problem is always what you can do about it. And if you are sort of not happy with yourself or not happy with something in a specific dimension, your problem is what you can solve. It's never the neighbor, it's never the competitor, it's never the government, it's never even the parents who might have sort of done this service to you in one way or the other. It's always you, you, and you. And that actually is sort of one of the secrets of getting a lot of energy to improve yourself, because the more you spend energy walking around and thinking, my God, how bad are the roads or the government or this, my sort of dad, I don't know, never loved me, or there is this and that trauma in me, the more you spend your energy thinking about others, well, guess what? Less you will have energy to focus on yourself, and less energy there will be left in order for you to improve yourself. So that is one of the um, extremely crucial ingredients for developing yourself as a future hero and being hero currently. So heroes never blame others. Heroes never feel like victims, even if they partly are victims of circumstances. Heroes always think about themselves and what they can do differently, what they can improve. So that's a very important message. And for me, one of the most inspirational persons whom I have met through books, I'm the biggest book nerd that I know. I read everything that has been written during last 2.5 thousand years. I make a point to read very old books, because if some things haven't changed for 2000 or 2.5 thousand years, then what are the chances that they will change next year or after 5 years? Fairly slim. So I make a point to read also very ancient and old books. And one of the best ancient books is written accidentally by Marcus Aurelius, who used to be Roman emperor. He was by far the wealthiest person at that time, by far the most powerful person at that time, and a Roman emperor, so a very, very sort of powerful person. And he wrote diary to himself in evenings. So not every evening, but every other evening, he sat down and he wrote a diary. I'm not sure if you're writing diaries, but Marcus Aurelius certainly sort of found time in evenings to reflect on a day, to reflect on what is happening in his head, and to reflect on how he is building and bonding, building himself and bonding with others, etc., etc. And after his death, some guys stole his diary, and it has survived up till this time, and it has been published into a book. The book is called Meditations, but it's not meditations, really a diary that Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful guy at that time, never intended anyone else to read. But it's a fascinating read. It's messy, but it's a fascinating read. And then I'm sort of, this is, I think, quite inspirational quote from there. Imagine a guy who can sort of order anyone killed or shuffled around, do this and that, and he's the most powerful guy on earth at that point in time. And he, in evenings, quite often writes to himself, "You have no power over. You have power. Sorry, you have power over your mind, not the outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength for the next day." So quite often he also feels powerless when it comes to outside events. There is death, there is despair, there are kind of sicknesses, there are sort of, it's also not the best leadership that he would go out and be a tyrant or dictator. Well, some these days, unfortunately, are choosing that path, but that never leads to anything good. So for Marcus Aurelius, what he writes to himself is, even if you might feel powerful when it comes to sort of outside world, the real power you have is over your own mind, not outside events. And the more you realize this, the more you will find strength. And that is sort of the essence of Stoic philosophy. That is also the essence of contemporary psychology. You actually have, I can tell a good story here. You actually have modern scientists that would try to analyze your mind, and they would sort of try to take all the things they know about you and analyze how happy you feel, how content you feel with your lives. So they would take like how mother has treated you, how father has treated you, where you live, how wealthy are your parents, how wealthy are you, how many times you have traveled abroad. So all the things about you, they will try to sort of get them and build a mathematical model around that in order to analyze. So what does it tell about your own head and what is happening in your own head and how happy you feel about your life. So everything that we know about you, including your health. So everything we know about you, we sort of make it into a mathematical model, and then we scientifically calculate how much of your happiness it explains. And the answer is quite shocking. Marcus Aurelius knew it, but modern scientists have proved it. The answer is quite shocking, and the answer is it's only 10%. So if I hack all of your lives in a way that I know everything about you, and I really can sort of discover all the aspects that are outside your head, and I observe everything that is outside your head, including your health. I will only hack and understand 10% of how you feel about yourself and how happy you are. And that's sort of a very important, not only philosophical but also practical question. So, what is the remainder? What are the 90%? If I know everything about you, and I still can explain 10%, where are the 90%? What is that? Is it some sort of aliens living in your head? And what is the 90%? And the answer is obvious, but also then again not so obvious. The answer is that 90% is what you tell yourself about the 10% and how you treat yourself. So do you bond with yourself? Do you support yourself? Do you encourage yourself? Are you okay to be the worst in English in class and then not feel too bad about it, but sort of feel maybe a bit bad about it in a way that you want to improve, and then you congratulate yourself that okay, you have finished to read the first book in English, maybe you are a bit better. So it's all of those things, not what is around you, but 90% really is what you tell yourself about your father, mother, your trips or lack of trips, how again poor you are or not poor. So 90% is how you treat yourself and what you tell yourself about those 10%. So Marcus Aurelius, though being in a very powerful position, intuitively arrived at that conclusion, but modern psychologists and scientists have proved it scientifically and mathematically. So again, don't spend too much time chasing 10% or, God forbid, blaming 10%. Your problem is always this 90%, and the main aspect, the main sort of focus of your happiness will be 90% in how you see the 10%, how you treat yourself, etc., etc. Sometimes it also comes as a shock that you have the seemingly the most happy Hollywood stars that are wealthy and famous and all that, yet they still end up committing suicide. And that also sort of proves the point. It's not about the 10%, it's not about what we can observe, but it is about having power over your mind, being hero in your own mind, being leader of your own mind, building your own mind, bonding with your own mind. So that is absolutely crucial. Even an older book is old Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu. That philosophy is fairly good one. It describes life as a way. So life is never about reaching that destination. So if you are worst in English in a class, it's not necessarily about being the best in English at one point in time. No, life is always a road. So you start the road maybe in one aspect being the worst or feeling as the worst, but life is a road. So what do you do on that road? Do you read? Do you watch movies? So it's always a road. It's always a road, and I like that sort of dynamics in this philosophy, that it's never like I will accomplish this or I will do that. No, it's always a road, and you are fairly alone on that road, and you are with your own head during that walk on a road, and you develop yourself. And it's also sort of for me this practical and I'm sorry, maybe narrow example with English language or presentation skills, but that makes a point, and this is exactly what Lao Tzu told 2.5 thousand years ago. He said the most difficult things in the world must be accomplished through the easiest. The greatest things in the world must be accomplished through the smallest. Therefore, the sage or the wise one never attempts great things and so accomplishes them. If I would sort of say to myself, I want I would say, well, I don't know, 20 years ago, I want to be presenter in the biggest conference in Baltics. That's not how you accomplish things, but you choose a very small thing. You sort of say, okay, I will not say no in case I need to come in front of class. And then I will fail first time. I will feel really bad about it, but I will sort of learn from it. Next time, maybe I will feel equally bad, but then I will sort of do one mistake less. And afterwards, well, and that is this small road. So you don't set for sort of a certain target, but you set on small things that are maybe leading you in a direction where you want to go. Sort of you choose the strategic direction, of course, but you don't say I will do this great thing. And this is how you accomplish that one. By the way, we will see later on Margaret Thatcher as a person with a quote, and she was a wonderful prime minister for United Kingdom. She never ever wanted to become a prime minister. There is this still wonderful moment in time when she sits in a room and they need to select the next prime minister, and she's still very much against her becoming prime minister, and she doesn't want to become a prime minister. But she looks around and she feels like, okay, that person, no, I wouldn't trust him, the country. This person, man, I need to admit I'm maybe a bit sort of better than him in that one. I really like him, all is fine with him, but maybe I can do it a bit better. So she goes through the room, and then she realizes, my God, if I'm honest to myself, if I'm honest to United Kingdom, I need to consider myself for that position. And that's also my experience in business and in leadership. The best persons, the best leaders are the ones that have slowly but consistently built themselves, but not the ones that have sort of set out to be in that position or do this and that. So those are the ones that have worked on themselves, have worked on improving themselves. And it's also extremely important to bear in mind this second aspect. The sage or the smart one, the wise one, does not contend with anyone, and then no one can contend with you. If I set out in class to contend with others in terms of English language, well, there was the best person in class. The smartest one was Dace. I would always be behind her, and what good would that serve me? I would always feel demotivated. So I would do something in English or a presentation, and she would do it way better. Why should I compete with her? Why should I sort of put myself down? So it's also psychologically, we really, when we compare ourselves with someone else, when we compete with someone else, we are only demotivating ourselves, we are hurting ourselves. It does not serve you any good. So if you want to be out of reach in some aspects with others, if you want to be hero in your own life, if you want to accomplish something, compete with yourself. Always try to be a bit better version today than you were yesterday, a bit better version this month than you were a month ago, a bit better version this year than you were a year ago. So the competition is only and always with yourself. And that's the only competition, frankly speaking, that you can win. So in that sense, well, you finish a lousy presentation, and Dace was still 5 times better than me. But I said to myself, well done, Carlos. Firstly, you didn't chicken out from this attempt. You tried it for the fourth time, and this time it was slightly less terrible than previous time. So well done, well done. You are winning in this competition. You are really advancing. This time it's already a bit better. And again, that gives you a very positive energy. You are less tired after that. You are sort of thinking about the next time. Okay, If I want to be even less lousy next time, maybe I should sort of try that thing differently or this thing differently. So the only competition is with yourself, and never contend with others. Don't be envious of others. If someone is succeeding, don't be envious of that person. Be happy, be joyous, learn from that person. I have always found it very inspirational to have more talented people around me, because then I can sort of look at them and see, okay, I don't want to copy you. I really like how you are succeeding, but maybe I can try to sort of try out that aspect that you are good at. So it's always about getting inspiration, getting positive energy out of others, and never being envious or bitter that someone is better than you. The only competition is with yourself. It's also very important in your life to have a bigger dream. This is Martin Luther King, and I still think this is one of the most inspirational speeches ever. He wrote that speech allegedly a day before in a hotel with one coworker, one lady, and he was very much explaining to her, I have a plan that we need to improve racial rights in America, and it needs to be more fair and all that. And well, I have a plan. No one is very energized by I have a plan. And that lady was kind of poking him and was all the time saying, but why are you doing this, Martin? This might get you killed. It actually ended up getting him killed. But why are you doing this? Why are you taking this risk? Why will you come out tomorrow on a stage and tell that you have a plan to improve the world? And then Martin said, well, I have a dream that my kids will live in a better world, and they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by their character, etc., etc. And then that lady felt, wow, this is actually even a better speech. This really energizes me, and now I see the sense of it. I see the sense of suffering. I see the bigger goal. I see the strategy out of it. And the next day, you can try to find it on YouTube. Martin goes out, and the beginning of that speech is fairly timid, and it's more along the lines of, I have a plan. And then this lady in the background tells him, tell them about your dream. And he continues with the plan, and the plan is, and we will sort of go to the Congress, and then we will go to the House of Representatives, and blah, blah, blah. And that lady persistently tells him, tell them about your dream. And then the real speech starts, and then everyone is listening, and then that goes down in history as one of the most inspirational speeches ever, where he says why he is doing that, not what he is doing, but why he is doing that. I have a dream. And that's very important for you as well, in order to get energy, in order to get motivation, not only to have plan, not only to develop yourselves, but to have a dream. And well, yeah, some think it's a bit worth giggling about, but I consider myself to be patriot of Latvia, patriot of Western values, and that is my dream, to see that Latvia and Baltics are more anchored with Western society, are better developed, more socially just, etc., etc. Therefore, having this dream, it hasn't been too difficult to be very involved in SOS, in Baltic Institute of Corporate Governance, etc., etc. That gives me a lot. That gives me a lot of motivation and energy. And it's also sort of from a very cynical angle. My grandfather barely survived gulag camps in Siberia, together with many Ukrainians, by the way, most of whom never returned from those gulag camps. But one of the core things and one of the core aspects why he survived, that was because he wanted his mother to be able to bury him in Latvia. And then his also sort of comment was, in gulag you want to die every minute. You don't want to survive that for yourself. No one thinks of himself too highly in order to endure that one. You just want to die. It's so miserable, it's so difficult. So that's kind of intuitively what my grandfather said, what kept him alive in Siberia in gulag camps. And then again, a wonderful scientist, Viktor Frankl, who survived another horror in Auschwitz and in Nazi death camps. He was a psychologist, and he ended up in various death camps, and it's a miracle that he survived. But he goes down in history as a psychologist that has discovered and distilled a couple of things. And one of the core things is Viktor Frankl said, if those that had meaning of their lives only inside themselves, those gave up and those died the fastest. They just physically gave up. They stopped eating. No one wants to survive that one. And the ones that survived were those that were trying to survive because of their mothers and fathers, their kids, or whatever outside meaning, or for their countries, or whatever. So whenever you have this outside meaning, that is the core of human spirit. Viktor Frankl himself, he always sort of every day told himself, I'm a psychologist. I have a doctor degree in psychology, PhD in psychology from Vienna University. I need to survive to write a book about others. So as a testimony for all the suffering and as this psychological insight and discovery, I need to survive to write a book. And miraculously he did. And again, he goes down in history as the one that proves that also physiologically you get more energy and you get more willingness to endure difficulties to survive if you have meaning outside yourself. So don't think that you need to kind of develop yourselves because of yourself. You need to do it because of others. And for me lately as well, sort of during last 10 years, I make various presentations also where audiences are uncomfortably big, as you saw in this first picture. But what gives me strength, I always say to myself, I don't do it for myself. I would rather sit and read a book. I do it to get a donation for SOS Children's Villages. So I have a specific financial target that I always say, okay, every presentation costs this much as a donation to SOS Children's Villages. And that makes my suffering more bearable, believe it or not. So there is this kind of target outside yourself. We are quite quickly approaching final slides of this speech, but yeah, I think this is also sort of something what we briefly discussed before. So who is your biggest enemy? It's yourself. It's not Datsa in the class. It's not your parents. It's not the government. Who consumes most of your energy? Again, it's not your Datsa or parents or government. It's you, and it's only or mostly you. And sort of a quick thing for you: if you feel insecure or depressed, then you have too much past in your head. So if I go out on a stage and I feel insecure, well, it is because I have not done a good job previously. Of course, I sort of feel a bit maybe depressed or insecure. So there's too much past. I'm focusing on what went wrong or what was not optimal previously. If I feel extremely stressed out or there's a lot of anxiety, it means there's too much future in my head. So I'm thinking, okay, what the future will bring, what will be my profession. So in this position, I will not stay longer than 1 year. What will come afterwards? So if I'm stressed and I feel a lot of anxiety, too much future in my head. And as you can guess, the real thing is present here and now. So the better you are in managing past in your head, shrinking the proportion of past, hopefully, and the better you are also in shrinking the future, the more you are present here and now. So again, bad in English, it's not about future stress or anxiety, it's not about insecurity, but it's here and there. Okay, I take a book in English language and I start to read it, or I take The Economist and I will read it for next 20 years or so. Being a hero is also not about being liked by everyone. Well, Mother Teresa was maybe liked by everyone, but if you have your own values, if you have your own goals, you don't need to set out to be liked by everyone. So very clear message and a good one from Margaret Thatcher. If you set out to be liked, you will accomplish nothing. So it's not about this ego thing where you want to be liked. No, it's about you, your own esteem, how you treat yourself, and what are your sort of strategic goals for the future in your life. And a last informative slide. This is actually what they try to teach in Harvard, and try to ask you to measure how much time you spend in each of those buckets. And this is extremely simple graph, but extremely powerful one. So there are things in your life that are important, so the scale of importance is there, and there are things that are urgent. And well, if something is not important and is not urgent, we are not stupid, we are not doing it too much, hopefully, unless we are into self-harm, but that's another discussion then. If something is extremely important and is extremely urgent, then we do it now. Again, we are not stupid. That's perfectly fine. But the magic of your long-term achievements lies in your ability to do less things that are urgent but are not important, in order for you to allocate more time to do things that are never urgent but are always very important. And for myself, I always tell, well, of course, I also like Facebook, Instagram, etc., etc. It always feels urgent, but is it really important for my long-term development? Not really. Reading a good book, it's never urgent. You can live all of your life without reading a good book or learning something new, or new language or whatever. So it's never urgent, but maybe it's really important. So the more you will be able to do less time, or the less time you will invest in things that are urgent but are not important, and more you will invest yourselves into some things that are really important but are not urgent. That is a really powerful thread in how you prioritize things, and how you are hero in your life, leader in your own life, how you again build yourself, etc., etc. So that's very crucial. And to end on a less serious note, of course, in modern environment, it is maybe becoming more and more difficult to do things that are really important, because information is all around, and strategy quite often is also sort of defining what you are not. So you can easily define, well, I'm not this, I'm not good in that, and I don't want to be good. I could have defined I'm bad in languages, I don't need to have languages in my life. Then maybe I would have been mathematician or something, but I certainly wouldn't be able to work in SOS Children's Villages internationally. So it's fine to define, and it's even needed to define what you are not, and to be fine with that. And those three pictures are of, to summarize, one quite powerful psychological investigation. So you have three people coming to work, and one has not slept at all. So obviously, this one guy hasn't slept at all. One guy has used some not so good substances, strongly not recommended from me. And the third one has not used anything, has slept very well, but puts up a smartphone while he works. And then psychologists are measuring which one of them will be able to learn more, and which one of them will be sort of capable to do better job, and kind of go into deep thinking and remember things, etc., etc. And actually, as you might guess by now, the worst person out of them all is a person with a smartphone, because that's constantly beeping up something that seems to be urgent but is never important. So yeah, there we have arrived, that we have at palm of our hand something that is even worse than other things that are strongly non-recommended. So be careful about who you are, what you shouldn't be, and what you should avoid. I'll stop there. Thank you very much, and maybe we have 1 or 2 minutes for questions. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Kārlis, for your speech.